I will tell you something that was a little bit on my mind today, which is, um, went over and visited my dad today and helping him take care of some stuff. And I think it's been a big lesson that that God's been working with me on. I'm sure that we've brought it up lots of times on this, but recognizing that what we're doing is about relationship with others, because it is very easy for me to get caught up in the little checklists or the things I
Mm.
want to do. You and I, Doug, we've been working a lot behind the scenes, like trying to figure out what our trajectory, what our plan is, and everything for the book, for the website, for the outreach that we want to do, in addition to other things I'm working on. And it's very easy for me to get caught up in um, checklists and kind of going, okay, I need to do this next, do this next, do this next. I've had a couple of interesting things which have happened to me over the last few weeks. Number one, I've had a conviction by the Holy Spirit to start attending daily mass, right? So I've been attending daily mass for the last several weeks. To summarize, in the past, for like Lent or Advent or something like that, I used to think to myself, oh, it'd be great if I'd be able to go to daily mass. And I just thought, no, 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 it's too hard because I've got too much stuff that's going on in my life. And yet here I am in the midst of it, just going, yeah, you've been able to build this in. Or I've been also building in like running and all this other stuff. And I feel like what God has been doing is to go, hey, I can stretch and change time for you because I am what is the source and summit of everything that's going on in your life. And if you focus on that, then I'll make the room for the other things to happen. Let me take care of the rest. And I also had it in terms of, relationships that I have with other people, right? Like today it's a work day, but my dad needs some help with some stuff. And I'm fortunate to have my dad, around and it's like, hey, he needs some help. So guess what? You get to go over and yeah, it's a couple hours while where you're going, okay, I'm going to pause everything else I'm doing and go over there and just spend the time. And my dad at one point was just like going, "Oh my gosh, I'm sorry. I didn't know it was going to take this long." It's just like going, "Dad, we're good. Like, take your
Yeah.
time. Take your time, right?" And I feel like again, all of this comes back to relationship, relationship, relationship. And in this 21st century, go get them, I'm just going to call him out. Gary Vaynerchuk, right? Gary V, that everybody knows. And he's just like the hustle dude, the hustle culture, right? You got to do everything. I don't care what you do your work. And then, study your stuff from like 9 p.m. till 2 a.m. in the morning. I don't care what it is. F
Right.
bomb, F bomb, F bomb, F bomb,
Yeah.
And you want to go, okay, dude, totally get it. That has a place and a time and a season, but that's not what we're called to. I think that there's times where that happens, where we have times where we're asked to press and to do that, but I don't think that that's God's way. I mean, not to discredit Gary Vee, or I don't even know where all of his, what his belief systems are or anything like that. But it's like to go, yeah, there's something about like working and pushing yourself and doing that, but also relationships, the relationship with God, and then also the relationship that you have with other people around you. So important. But there are times where I truly think that God just says, yeah, I need you to close that computer right now
Yeah.
because I need you to spend time with a parent or with your husband or wife or with your kids. Like you got to do that, you know?
That's one of the things that I love about the company that I work for, Central Consulting, is that they prioritize time with people. We start meetings and we just start catching up and how's your day? We don't dive right into the agenda. And they have this thing they call the mug club, meant to like grab a mug of coffee or whatever, and they pair you up with someone random across the company once a month. In
Yeah.
fact, mine was today with a guy named Zach, who I haven't seen for a while, and we were just catching up, and it not a lot of business talk. Just he was seeing how I was doing health wise, he and his wife are getting ready to go to Spain to go check it out, maybe move over there long term. And we're talking about living in Europe. And it's just a time to prioritize people, because at the end of the day, you can have all the right processes in place, but if you don't have relationships with people, there's going to be hiccups in the road. I don't care how good your process is, how good your checklist is. If you're ignoring the people equation of things, you're going to fail.
Hold on. I'm going to tell you two things that just popped in my mind as you were saying that. You know, everybody loves Raymond, right? With Ray, oh my gosh, what's Ray's last?
Romano.
Ray Romano, thank you. And then the other showrunner on that, who I cannot think of his name off the top of my head, but I heard several interviews with the showrunner of that show who worked on it with Ray Romano, and you know that they used to have like a hard out with the writers' room at 5 p.m. every day because they said, listen, we need you to go home and to have your relationships with your wives and your kids and all that stuff, because the other side of it too was we need material, right?
Right,
So it's like we need, right? There's all of this stuff that happens in families where you have to just go, yeah, you gotta be living your life, right? And we have to realize like that's what it's all about. I've read it before, but I have the audio version of it. I'm a huge Star Wars nut over the years, but there's a book that's out. It's called The Secret History of Star Wars, and it's by Michael Kaminsky. Okay, and it's really an unauthorized. It's an unauthorized talking about how Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and all those books got made. Now, listen, years ago, I got one of the larger books of like the making of Star Wars that was written by, it was an official like Lucasfilm put out thing. It was beautifully made. But this Secret History of Star Wars by this Michael, what's his name here? Kaminsky. First of all, I got turned on to the audio version of it because I've been listening to a YouTube show, Film Threat, with Chris Gore and Alan Ing on YouTube. And Chris Gore started talking about this book. And I remember I had read the book version of it, but they said that there was an audible version of it. So I started listening to it. And I feel like the audible version has a even more stuff that was in the original print version. Here's my long-winded approach on this. George Lucas, when he was creating Star Wars and trying to put everything together, he had this huge idea of what he wanted to do with the money, and he was trying to, what eventually ended up becoming the Lucasfilm buildings and ILM and all this stuff that they had up towards San Francisco. He was trying to get money from Star Wars and Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, where he was trying to basically make almost like an artist's collective, where he wanted to get all this money so that ultimately there would be this place where independent filmmakers could come, and then they could hang out, and then they could develop stuff, and it would all be outside of the studio system. George Lucas got so immersed and swallowed up by the work that it destroyed his marriage to Marcia Lucas, who was the editor on Star Wars, and a lot of people say was kind of like the heart and the soul and some of the brains behind, you know, not only the editing on Star Wars, but a lot of like, she was the one person in the whole Lucasfilm circles that could tell George, like, no, that doesn't work. No, you shouldn't do that. Right. And again, but he was so consumed with trying to get everything right, seeing how everything would work, working these long days, being absolutely consumed by this thing, that by the time that he finished Return of the Jedi, she basically ended up having an affair and falling in love with a guy that was installing the stained glass work that they had at the Lucasfilm buildings. and she ended up like the marriage just ended up falling apart. And all of this money and everything that he had focused on trying to like get and all this stuff, he lost almost half of it because of the divorce, you know? So here was this thing where he was so like, this is the thing, just wait until we get to there, just wait till we get to this end goal. This is what we're focusing on. And again, I'm not, believe me, I'm not George Lucas. I'm not in his head, and I'm only going off of the stuff that's talked about in this book. And a lot of this stuff comes from interviews from George Lucas and from Marcia Lucas and all the other people that were in their circles. But the example that I got from that was like, and I've seen it happen before in the entertainment industry where people get so consumed with what they want to do, and especially with the loved ones that they have in their life. It's just like, just hold on, just a little bit more, just a little bit more. Right. And 11 years ago, I heard this from Michael Hyatt, who does a lot of like online platform stuff. But he talked about like so many times with the relationships in our lives, particularly with our spouses, it's almost like we ask our spouses while we're working and focusing on projects. And this can also mean the closer relationships we have in our life. It's almost like when we're out of their lives and we're focusing on our work and doing our stuff, it's almost like we're asking our closest people in our life to say, hey, I just need you to hold this boulder for a little bit. I'm going to be back to help you with it. But for a little while, I just need you to hold that for a little bit while I just go finish this thing up. Right. And he says, the problem is that really what it should be is hey, babe, these next couple of days are going to be really hairy, but then I'll be right back. But he says what ends up happening with a lot of people is that we, especially with like career-driven, focused people, is that we have them hold on to that for several days, and we just go, hey, I just need you to hold it a couple more days. And then we go off. And then we come back and we go, I just need you to hold that for me a couple more weeks, right? And we do it at the expense of the people that are closest to us, that they just end up getting like worn out and exhausted. And, you know, the people that are working and focusing on this stuff, we can build up this resentment of just like, can't you see everything that I'm doing for us? But instead, we're also ignoring the fact that we've left our closest people holding this boulder that they're not supposed to be holding on their own, you know? So
that brings up two thoughts in my mind. Number one, how often do we do the exact same thing with God?
Oh my gosh.
All the time am I saying, God, I'm going to spend part of this day with you, but I'll be back in a few more days. Where he's like, I need to be in your life every single day, every minute of every day. The other thought I had was the flip side, the benefit of in the entertainment industry, when you see really good movies, especially ones where they've had to go on remote sites together to work on it for a period of time, the actors develop such a strong bond in working together and living together that it comes across on the screen. I'm thinking of like Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, sure.
Or even the sci-fi TV show Supernatural, where two main characters lived in an apartment together for the first couple of seasons.
Yeah.
And developed this brotherhood that comes across, which is what has made that show so successful.
Just as you were saying that too, it just really reminds me of like I just gone over, I think it's like in Acts 4, it's around Acts 4 or 5, but it's talking about what the early church is, right? Like the early church is like everybody working together. And it's not, and I said this in another video that I had for my other channel. It's not communism that they do. Right. As a matter of fact, there's Dr. Scott Hahn, who's a Catholic theologian, described it as like it's family-ism is what it is. It's almost like people that are working together, but they have the common focus, which is love of Christ, proclaiming the gospel, and love of God, right? But they're all working towards what that purpose is, and trying to help each other out with it. And dude, that's it, right? Because that's the whole point, is to go, how many times do I have to catch myself on that? To go, I'm doing this, and your point that you had was exactly right, Doug. It's it's God saying, I'm everything. And I think that that's the thing that's starting to open up for myself, even when I'm realizing like, oh yeah, I truly can find the time to pray or to go to mass every day. Like I can find it. Like it's there. It's possible. He's not asking me something that's impossible. And yet we think, no, but gotta let me do my own stuff.
Right.
Let me be able to, I just want to be able to just like chill out and to watch my, I just want to watch my Netflix or just want to watch my YouTube things or play my game. Can I do that? I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, you can do that, but you can also me first,
Right.
me first. And like the more time and I understand for like people that are not Christians and even other Christians, they're just like going, oh, it's too much, right? It's like, guess what? It's a muscle. It's a muscle that you start to build and that you show up, and you have to show up time and time again until you just go, until it's second nature and you go, oh, yeah, I do this. And I don't want to live without this, you know?
That time in Acts, and I looked up the verse, Acts 4:32 is really strong. It says all of the believers were one in heart and mind. No one claimed that any of their possessions was their own, but they shared everything they had.
Yeah.
When's the last time the church has been like that?
No, dude, I'm going to tell you this, Doug. All right, here comes a little bit of my conservatism. Not too much, not too much. But it truly is the idea of like, that's kind of what the church is ultimately called to do, right?
Yeah.
Like that idea, if we were truly living in a Christian church with community where it's like these other things would be taken care of, right?
Right.
When you have people that are falling on hard times, or there's medical issues, or there's anything else that's happening, the Church of Christ is rallying around each other and going, we've got you. We've
Yeah.
got you, right? And honestly, in some ways, and I get it, like we are never going to have a utopia in this time. We're just not. That's not what God's calling us to do, right? Because ultimately, there still has to be the end, final judgment, revelations, everything else that happens. It's coming. The church is heading for its own Calvary. I know that. Like all of that's coming, no doubt. The church will go through the exact same process that Christ went through, right? He's like going, you're going to pick up your cross and you're going to follow me. And that means the church is also going to go through a version of this, right? So you're going to go through a version of that where there's persecution and all that other stuff that's there. But the point is that we're called as best as we can to get to that point where the church does need to be the one that's like saying, hey, we're helping, we're serving the poor, we're doing these things. And there's been pockets throughout history where there have been examples of that doing, but again, it's filled with broken people. Literally, I think it is in the next chapter, right in Acts 5, you literally have the husband and wife that like, they sell
Oh, yeah.
they
Ananias and
sell,
Sapphira. Yeah.
right? They sell some property and then they kind of hold back a little bit, and and they knowingly hold back, like kind of going, we know that we know that we could trust, and this is uncomfortable. Maybe we're being asked to stretch, right? But we're going to keep a little bit back, and they die as a result of it. And Peter just goes, you knew what you were doing. Like, you know what you were doing. You knew. And in a way, it's almost like Peter is saying, like, oh my gosh, God was calling you to this. Like this was your thing. It's not about, again, it's not about the idea of like you were rich and you were supposed to give everything up and you knew that. It's almost like that there was probably a personal challenge that was probably issued to this husband and this wife, and yet they held it back. And there was another part going, oh my gosh. Because it's almost like when Peter is talking about that, even when the husband dies, and then he kind of questions the wife and like going, hey, What happened with that property you sold? And like, he knows and here's the opportunity for her to be able to tell the truth. And she does. And he goes, oh, no, your husband just died because of this, and you're about to die too, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. It was such a beautiful thing. I'm like reading more in those verses, and God's grace was so powerfully at work in them all that there were no needy people among them.
None.
And I look at the way the world is today, it's so self-centered. And I have had conversations with people about this before. I'm like, they don't understand the Bible's perspective on giving to others first. It's like, well, what about me? But if everyone is giving to everyone else, my needs are going to be met through the agency of other people. And how much more
Right.
loving and cared for do I feel by someone else meeting my needs rather than me trying to meet my own needs myself?
Yeah.
It's much more loving to receive that kind of support.
I was listening to Jordan Peterson the other day, and I get it. He approaches Old Testament from a psychological perspective, but he was unpacking some of that stuff with Cain and Abel, with the idea that Abel was kind of giving, when he gave his sacrifice, he was giving wholeheartedly. He was giving his best and his first and all that, because out of his love to God.
Yeah.
And the other thing that happens in that story is that Cain's kind of holding back. And God calls him on it.
Mm-hmm.
He says, your sacrifice isn't good. Well, what are you talking about? He goes, you didn't give your best. He did. Abel
Right.
did. Abel's got the right type of heart. But the fact is, it's like, you're not in that place. And again, the interesting thing that also happens in that story is that Cain, again, it's that murderous, selfish, I'm going to get back, I'm going to get mine. If you, if I can't have it, no one can have it.
Right.
That part that exists in man's heart too. So anyway, those are sort of the things that are just on my mind, anyway, that's just sort of where I'm at today, is just, all right, Lord, again, I'm just gonna trust you. I'm gonna trust you. And if
Yep.
there's these moments where I feel like you're calling me to slow down, take that time, then I need to be obedient. This has been a continual prayer that's been happening for me. Jesus, help me to hear you. Help me to obey and follow your command. Show me what to do now. Show me what to do next. And then that's it. I think he's just asking me to live in the moment with everything. And, and believe me, I know that there's part of this is about him calling me to focus and to get the work done, but to also recognize, hey, I'm now asking you to pause for a second and to trust and to sow some of your time, energy, and effort into other people that also need your help and your support, right, and your attention and your love. So there you go. Any other closing thoughts for you before we wrap this up?
Thank you for being there for me over the years.
You got it.
Who would have thought 3 years ago that we'd have such a great friendship and brotherhood?
It's been a blessing. Huge.
Amen.
Huge, man. Awesome. Hey, do us a favor. Why don't you, before you leave, to our listeners on this, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and also leave a comment on this. Has there been stuff that you're going through where maybe you're thinking, yeah, maybe I need to slow down a little bit? What is that for you in your life? If you feel like you want to share it in the comments below, please do. Please like, subscribe, share this video. And we've also got amazing things like our 1-month Buffalo journal, which you can get a free copy of right now if you head over to I'dRatherBeABuffalo.com. And also I'dRatherBeABuffalo.com/free journal. So you can join along right with us. Can take a look at past videos where we've actually gone through the journal. And yeah, we just are here to help you get through life storms. So thanks for joining us, and we will see you next time.